This video went viral on Twitter. It is the next wave of like, don't think about 3,000 murdered children with our tax dollars and our missiles, and instead talk about how horrifying what these guys are doing is. And they're horrifying because they hate Jewish people, okay? Specifically. I'll show you the video in a second. Isn't ripping the posters kind of cringe? It is. Not only is it cringe, but it's also unhelpful, and you are literally giving in to why those posters are put up to begin with. Those posters are put up specifically because they want to invoke a feeling that you should have, which is that it is f***ed up that these are children that have been held hostage. Those children are also being bombed as well. Make no mistake, the posters are propaganda. Of course they are. And I said this as soon as I saw the poster. I said, it's a trap. It's a f***ing trap. Don't touch posters. You're dumb. Especially because the major reason as to why, if you touch those posters, is because Ben Shapiro is going to make a video out of it. And he's going to say, look, you're showing that you don't give a f*** about Israeli children. You don't care about Israeli children. You don't care about Israeli hostages. You know who doesn't care about Israeli hostages? Benjamin motherfucking Netanyahu. Do not, under any circumstance, allow this demon and others to make an example out of you, to like cut this propaganda to a bunch of liberal squishes. Because the broad consensus in the United States of America, for those who like actually you can have on your side, is that they're squishes. So aesthetics are a little important when you want to build a broad coalition. This is, of course, entirely removed from like how Palestinians move, how Palestinians operate, or what Hamas has done. I'm not even talking about that, right? I'm talking about specifically carrying yourself a certain way. So the worst thing you could do in that situation is rip up the posters, because you'll be caught on camera. Best thing you can do in that situation is put the many different names of the Palestinian children that have been slaughtered. Put posters of them up everywhere. Have Zionists come and fucking try to rip those off. Do the same thing, but in reverse. And if they come and rip those off, film them. Expose them for their cruelty. There is a reason why this is so effective. The reality is, like, I understand being angry. I understand how unjust the situation is for Palestinians. It is. Make no mistake. I'm not going to sit here and be like, this is the worst kind of anti-Semitism I've ever seen. No, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. These are angry people. They're doing something wrong that I consider to be wrong. I consider it to be both wrong and also, additionally, bad, because it's going to be used against you. No matter what happens, there is a way that you have to carry yourself. I've talked often about the callous indifference to human life that those who are in support of Israel's apartheid state can present when talking about a Palestinian or an Arab or a Muslim. But you, if you are defending Palestine, cannot do that. And there is no honor in breaking through that boundary, because the unfortunate reality is, if you are presenting yourself and your movement to America as a whole, when there's a sea of Islamophobia and they're going to say you're anti-Semitic anyway, you cannot give up any ground. You can't do that. Most people who have been at this for a very long time are aware of this reality. Sometimes you do have to capitulate to not someone who is advocating against you, but you do have to capitulate to the whims of the broader audience that you want to represent your moral case to a certain degree. So where's the video? Does anyone have that? I don't think it matters. If it wasn't this, there would be something else. Islamophobic peeps won't change. Media will find whatever opportunity to show Arabs in a bad light. Yeah, 100%. But there's varying degrees of like acceptability. Think about how easy it is for me to dismiss when I am trying to help liberals come to terms with Israel's apartheid regime. Think about how easy it is when someone says, oh, from the river to the sea is actually deeply anti-Semitic. They want to kill all Palestinians. I mean, they want to kill all Israelis, right? They want to kill all Jews. You can very easily go, no, that's wrong. But the reality is, every single thing that you do, you have to be thinking, is this productive? Am I genuinely helping the cause? Because this is propaganda. Of course it's propaganda. But when you do that, you've played into the propaganda, because you have heightened the propaganda. You've legitimized it. Just give them less ammo. It's that simple.
These are ripping posters down. These are innocent civilians in Israel.
Fuck you, fuck Israel, bitch. Fuck you.
These are our family members. We have family there.
Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you too, bitch.
Again, again, you need to understand. Stop saying base. Stop saying base in the fucking chat. Oh, God, you guys are so stupid. You're doing it. You're doing the thing. You're doing the exact same thing. There is probably at least 1,000 people in here right now that is screen recording every single fucking person that said base just now to be like, look, Hasan loves it. Hasan hates Israeli babies. Notice how Hasan didn't immediately and regularly condemn it. It's like, bro, it is so fucking disingenuous to act like you give a single shred of a fuck about Israeli children being held hostage by Hamas right now when the Israeli government that you're defending is blowing up those fucking hostages. It's ridiculous. You know who's fucking taking down those posters in Tel Aviv? Motherfucking Benjamin Netanyahu supporters. You want to know why? Because they see it as counterproductive. They see it as propaganda that is actually harming the war efforts. So stop. I know that here in the United States of America, this is specifically created to invoke this kind of reaction so they can continue it. It's that simple. Why do you give into this idea that there's any utility of hanging these posters in America outside of justifying genocide of funding Israel? What do you mean? I am saying that. There's no real utility here, but it's a trap, and you're willingly walking into the trap. Like, that's my point. The point of those posters in and of itself is not to be like, look at all these children that are lost. The point of these posters, the real point of these posters is so that someone goes and fucking tries to rip it off so they can fucking film it and go, look at these scary Arabs. They hate it. They have no interest in Israeli lives. And it does look like that. It looks like that to every single person that's watching it that isn't as invested in the plight of Palestinians. You have to carry yourself a certain way. Here. Now, obviously, I'm not going to bend over backwards to condemn them. I do think that it's unhelpful and unproductive, and you shouldn't do it, especially when you should know that you have to be very careful with the way that you present your argument. Unfortunately, okay, in America, if you want to apply any kind of fucking stress towards any kind of pressure towards the government, you have to have a broad coalition. And in order to have a broad coalition, you have to bring liberals onto your side as well. And liberals can be brought to your side. However, the issue is, if you deal with it in this way, then the only thing that Americans will talk about is not saying that you have to roundly condemn these people, okay? But this is what'll happen. Look at this. This has got 20,000 likes. The fucking hilarious circumstance here is that there are a ton of Zionist counter-protesters, both Christian and Jewish, but predominantly Christian as a matter of fact, engaging in acts of violence against any number of different Palestinians, people that aren't even like at a Palestinian protest, but just straight up looking Muslim. It's not going to ever get this kind of coverage. It's absolutely stupid because we should care equally about the hostages as we do about Palestinian humans. Life is human life. I agree, exactly. As an Arab, I've had to be hyper vigilant my entire life when protesting because all they want to do is catch you on something to demonize us further. Yes. I think a lot of people just don't want to think about that or don't recognize that why this kind of thing happens to begin with. Like a trap, are posters of Israeli hostages drawing awareness or baiting pro-Palestinians into getting canceled when they tear them down? I think people are looking at the fact that they are so one-sided about these missing people. You are promoting Zionism, says a young woman carrying a wad of papers while being tailed by someone filming a fairly empty promenade. I am promoting Zionism. I am a Zionist, retorts the person filming. So you basically think genocide against Palestinians is justified, the woman replies. Great question. The video is one of more than a dozen similar videos circulating online. Each depicts a person or people removing a poster of Israeli hostages while others confront them. In one, a woman in a bright pink coat removes a post from a streetlight and yells, "You support genocide, you asshole," at the person filming. In another, a person removing a poster from an electrical box appears to refer to the person filming them as a dog. A man gets a camera shoved in his face in yet another clip that shows a small group accosting him for removing posters. He asks the crowd, but what about the Palestinians? Most people depicted removing the poster have been identified, launching calls for them to lose their jobs, get kicked out of school, and a barrage of internet trolls. The posters themselves were created and originally distributed innocuously enough. This part is also true. The original posters, especially in Israel, play an entirely different role in Israel than it does in the United States of America. This isn't about optics and respectability politics. Exactly. This is about laying a trap and having people fucking step directly into it. If you are an activist, if you care about a cause, you always have to think, am I doing something that is productive? I know a lot of people in my hater communities make fun of me for using that term a lot, but it is important. If you want to engage in building a movement, if you want to engage in coalition building, you have to think about these things from a broader context. And one of those contexts, especially if you're in the fucking Western world, is how it will be viewed. If this was not important, if the aesthetics and the optics weren't important, then there would be no need for Jewish Voice for Peace, for example. they are a perfect representation of a group that is very clear, very coherent on their agenda. They're all Jewish. They all wear the same t-shirts that very clearly define it. Why is there a need for that? Because people are ruthlessly trying to analyze under a microscope every single thing that you do if you are saying pro-Palestine in an effort to vilify you. So you cannot leave any room for confusion. Now, does this mean that there will not be people that cut through that and still engage in actions that can either be misconstrued, or even people that say like horrifyingly anti-Semitic things even in protests and whatnot? That will happen. It will always happen. There's no way to avoid that in a mass movement. But the goal should always be to minimize it. That's why I showed you an example of that protest marshals very quickly and very efficiently dealing with students that were coming in to counter-protest and antagonize and even dox, right? Even when you do it right, you will still get vilified. But when you do it right and you get vilified, you can at least defend this position. What would your reaction be to people instead putting up those murder by Israel posters, kids directly on top? Would it be falling into the same trap? Of course not. Of course not. Guess what? I'm saying you should do that. Of course. And people would fucking take those down and not a single peep would happen. As a matter of fact, they have done that, and there's no fucking New York Post article on it. You want to know why? Because this is an Islamophobic country. It's the exact same reason. It is the exact same fucking reason as to why they don't fucking go on the ground and ask the Gazans how they feel about the bombing campaign and immediately have an IDF spokesperson contextualize why this incredible asymmetric violence is being doled out to the Palestinian population as a whole. Why this ethnic cleansing campaign is actually truly morally righteous and justifiable. Because there's a double standard. There's a double standard. Everyone knows this. Please, you know this. You're Palestinian, you know this. Here, there is no better representation of said double standard than this.
Remember that the citizens of Gaza, these innocent civilians who so many people are shedding tears about, they voted for Hamas in the last election, and they would probably vote for Hamas today. So yeah, they're non-combatants, they're civilians, but they're supporters of Hamas. Whereas the people who were killed in Israel, many of them were not supporters of Netanyahu.
That's insane. That's an insane thing to say.
Many of them represented kind of left-wing kibbutzniks, peace activists, people who are opposed to the Netanyahu government, people who wanted a two-state solution, people who are opposed to the settlements, people who are opposed to the occupation, and they were killed. And so when you look at these civilian deaths, you have to ask yourself a question. How many of them really are civilians?
Yeah, ask that question. To which I replied, if you were to say the overwhelming majority of Israel supports the current ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza, which is true, 83% of Israeli Jews, not my designation. The designation of Israel is Jew versus Arab, even though it is inherently a racist designation in my opinion, but Israel's an apartheid state, so they make that. 83% of Jews in Israel, as opposed to the 70% of Palestinian citizens of Israel, the Arabs in Israel. According to the Israeli Democracy Institute, 83% of Israeli Jews believe that the casualties, the civilian casualties, the Palestinians that die are not important in Israel's latest siege. 83%. So does this mean that they all deserve, like the entirety of Israel deserves an equivalent violent retaliation that targets Israeli schools, hospitals, bakeries? No, of course not. That would be immoral. And that would be designated as terrorism. Everyone would say, you're fucking psycho. You're a terrorist. You love terrorism. However, Alan Dershowitz, Jeffrey Epstein's favorite friend and defender, Alan, I never took my underwear off Dershowitz, can get away with saying this. Congresspersons can get away with saying this. Why? Because they're saying it as they're defending Israel. And the enemies of Israel are Arabs, they're Palestinians, they're Muslims, they're scary, they're bad. We've already dehumanized them over the course of the past fucking 20, 30 years. To which this guy replied, and I had to reply back to him, Hamas targeted civilians. Why aren't you blaming Hamas for this? Israel is held to a higher standard by you than Hamas. Why is that? And he didn't even understand my argument. I said, why is one of the strongest militaries in the world with a secret nuke that gets $4 billion every year from the U.S. to run an apartheid state not held to the same standards as a fundamentalist militant movement that was born as a reaction to existing under those gruesome conditions? But of course, because if you're biased, you don't understand my point here. If you're biased, you think I'm saying Israel should be held to a higher standard. And I think Israel should be held to a higher standard. Of course, it's a fucking militarized state, right? It has all of the power to end the violence. But in that circumstance, I'm not even saying Israel should be held to a higher standard. I'm saying, why can't you hold Israel to the same standard as Hamas? But because people are already inherently biased, they immediately go, oh, what? You just, I don't understand. Israel should have even lower standards, actually. I actually think Israel, the most democratic and virtuous country in the region, should be held to lower standards as they are the good guys. Yeah. That's how I think. I'm a baby. I'm a child. I also think that good people do good things, Israel, and bad people do bad things, Palestinian children especially. They are responsible for a lot of the bad things, which is why good should triumph over evil. Okay, got it. Can you finish your thought about the two different forms of resistance? Yes, there is always going to be more militant forms of resistance in comparison to a broader coalition building effort. The dynamic between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, okay? These two forces work side by side with one another, no matter how people try to tell you that one triumphs over the other. They are both a necessity. You're pretty hated on the internet lately. It's not lately. It's always. It's always. And it will be forever, because nobody fucking represents leftist politics and social progress across the board unconditionally on every fucking boundary, especially even on America's foreign policy endeavors, in a clear manner without drawing a lot of fucking ire. These are not popular subjects. If it was popular, I'd be sitting over here, playing video games and watching fucking YouTube videos instead of trying to endlessly describe this position to people who refuse to understand it. Maybe it's not popular because it's not a great idea. Yeah, you know what wasn't popular? Fucking the civil rights movement. You know what wasn't popular? Ending slavery. Shut the fuck up. You know what wasn't popular? Ending the apartheid state. Something not being popular to a bunch of dumbasses, especially because it's been propped up by capitalist forces our entire existence, doesn't change the fucking reality of whether or not it is morally or legally permissible or just. Idiot. There's never been a fucking social justice movement that was popular until it did become popular. It doesn't start off as popular. People don't like change. Hundreds of family members of hostages have called for a ceasefire and expressed outrage at the possible ground invasion. Israel has described calls for a ceasefire despicable. The United Nations, meanwhile, overwhelmingly voted for a truce between Israel and Hamas. Let me explain something to you. Benjamin Netanyahu brought in a fake family of the hostages into his first meeting in public, a week after the bombing campaign had already started, where they were blowing up, potentially, the Israeli hostages. And he brought in a fake family member that wasn't even related to the fucking hostages to go, Bibi, go ahead, I support you unconditionally. I support you unconditionally, Bibi. You fucking killed my family members. It's cool. It's fine. I give you my full-throated support. Like, it's fucking insane, dog. It's deranged psychopathic shit. Benjamin Netanyahu's bibists in Israel, in Tel Aviv, are the ones who are ripping the hostage posters. Because Israel doesn't care about the fucking hostages. Israeli citizens care. To a certain degree, the family members care. But that's what's fucked up, is that we have to sit here and act like the IDF gives a even shred of a fuck about these hostages, when for all intents and purposes, like Hamas has said time and time again, we will do a hostage swap. We'll start releasing the hostages day by day. Israel's answer to that literally is, no, we can't stop the bombing campaign. Fuck you. Straight up, this happened. Like, I covered it. I've been covering it nonstop for the past 3 fucking weeks. You know this is the case. So it blows my fucking mind that here in the United States of America, the conversation is like entirely on the different scale here. So there is no reason to like give into this. This is a purposeful distraction, because the reality is, if you care about these hostages, and I do, I want them to be released, then you have to fucking pressure the Israeli government, not Hamas. You can't fucking pressure Hamas. They have nothing. We have no control over Hamas. But you should, ostensibly, at least in theory, maybe not in practice, have some control over the Israeli government. It's supposed to be a democracy, right? Which is not, but let's be real. There is no call to action here reflected. You look and your fear is heightened because you think someone is missing from your neighborhood. And then you see the beautiful pictures of beautiful people and they are in harm and danger but they're in another country. There's nothing you can do to help them. So the only thing you can live with is one-sided anger, and maybe now you're more primed to oppose a ceasefire. Maybe you're now more primed to support the vilification of Palestinians. The person who created these posters is now the responsibility to understand. Do I continue this, knowing what's happening? The harm that I said I didn't want to be created from this? Or do I use that new platform I have where 30,000 people are visiting my site to download these things? And do I put a message that says, these are not the ways to use it? Shimonov said that ignoring the way the posts are being used is effectively a form of endorsing or at least accepting the repercussions, irrespective of anyone's original intentions. Band-Aid, the artist who created the posters, said that the best response to people removing the posters is just to put more up. It's outside, it's outdoors, everyone's got their own opinion, and you could take them down. It happens. It's not a museum, he said. Asked his thoughts on the conflict surrounding the posters, Band-Aid asked for the name of the account sharing the videos and said, sounds interesting. Asked whether he would support posters calling for a ceasefire, Band-Aid was reluctant to make a statement calling for action. Dan, who previously threatened people who took down the posters, said he would absolutely support a ceasefire. Sarah, who was filmed removing the kidnapped posters, if these posters are something about a ceasefire or about discouraging Israeli aggression to safety, to safely get the hostages back, I would not have taken them down. I would have been a champion of them. Over the weekend, the Daily Dot was provided images of posters mimicking the kidnapped format. These features images of Palestinians, including their names, ages, and are titled Murdered by Israel. This poster was created by Jews who support a free Palestine, the images add. The Israeli government does not speak for us or for you. Do not let them tell you rejecting genocide is anti-Semitism. So that's good. That's what you're supposed to do. And guess what? Some people have done that, or you see examples, plenty of examples, maybe not in media, but on at least social media, of pro-Israel counter-protesters thinking that they can get away with like behaving in a fucking psychotic manner. Here.
Gaza, you
Stop it with fucking Gaza, you fucking asshole! This pro-Israeli woman in London attacked people who were distributing leaflets in support of civilians in Gaza.
Gaza, you
do you not care about Gaza and the people down there?
Okay,
No, you're hitting me.
Later, the woman was detained by the police. And she was fucking crying. An act of egregious anti-Semitism. Fucking hell. Bit nasty, innit? When you see Israelis comfortably abusing people in broad daylight outside of occupied Palestine, know that they believe they're operating under the same impunity to exercise and brutalizing Palestinians. They forget that in the moment they're not wearing their uniforms. This entitlement to abuse people is cultural for them and is what they've been subjecting Palestinians to for over 7 decades. Full military. I don't even know if this person is like Israeli. Okay, this person is not fucking Israeli. This person is British. All right, fucking hell, he's a British person. We don't even fucking know if they're Jewish or not. Never forget, this is a very important part of this conversation. The largest number of Zionists is not Zionist Jews. There's not that many Jews to begin with. It's Zionist Christians. And I think I've made it clear. My position is that it is unproductive. People are already looking for anything and everything they can to fucking shit on you. And the reason why they want to shit on you is not because, like, they legitimately think you're anti-Semitic, okay? So there's no reason to fucking give them any opportunity to even present to a broader audience that your pro-Palestinian position is in any way, shape, or form anti-Jewish, okay? Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Does anyone ever ask Zionists if anti-Zionist Jews being told they should have been put in gas chambers and that Hitler made a mistake falls under anti-Semitism?
Hitler made a mistake. You should have been in the gas chamber. Too bad. But we're here and you're gonna go to hell.
Nice. The gall. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. I don't think a lot of you understand this. Maybe it's like your first protest against Israel or whatever, but like there are plenty of examples of this, plenty more examples of this where this came from. Jews don't even believe in hell. Yeah, she might not be Jewish. She don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. Fuck you mean? What did I tell you? There are more Zionist Christians than there are Zionist Jews.